Alrighty everyone, welcome back. We now have the Mandalorian Season 3 finale out on Disney+. A lot of fans are really expressing their opinions on this final episode, a majority of which I have noticed that they prefer this episode in comparison to the past 7 episodes that we got from Mando Season 3. And I gotta say, I do agree, I really do believe that the finale was probably the best one out of all, and this is exactly how the season should have flowed from start to finish. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are very busy working day in and day out and are gearing up toward making all these different announcements at this year's D23 event, which by the way is going to be bigger than this year's Celebration event, it's going to have a lot of TV show announcements, updates on the existing films, and new movie announcements as well. However, when it comes down to what Jon and Dave are currently planning for specific sequences in an upcoming project, I think that this is going to make a lot of fans out there either love this or hate this, depending on exactly what your preference is about sequel trilogy content. We're going to be tapping into this right now and exactly what it really means. Now, what Jon and Dave are doing right now is they are creating some major and minor retcons at the same exact time toward the sequel trilogy, and one of which has a lot to do with the character of Ben Solo and Luke Skywalker. We're going to be going into every single detail about what is currently planned for a brand new Star Wars installment. Now, given that we have, of course, Jon and Dave storyboarding multiple shows at the same exact time before they begin certain scripts on X amount of shows to get a rough idea of where the story is going, one of which has a lot to do with The Mandalorian Season 4. Now, with Jon and Dave developing many stories for the new Star Wars shows, one big plan of theirs in particular has to do with a very important scene that's currently in the works. It's noted that one of the storyboards for The Mandalorian Season 4 that was finalized to be used in the revised version of the script jumps ahead a couple of years and focuses on a very big cameo that connects to Ben Solo. Favreau seemingly takes us back to the world of Ossus. The description of the illustration where Luke Skywalker is seen with R2-D2, where Luke is meditating and levitating in mid-air over the grass. It's at this point in time where a young child shouts, "Uncle Luke," is described to be a callback to when Luke shouts Uncle Owen on Tatooine, a decision by Jon Favreau to create a parallel to that of A New Hope. The child yelling out Uncle Luke turns out to be no other than Ben Solo, who is informing Luke about an accomplishment of his way of using the Force and begs Luke to show him. It turns out that the storyboards illustrate that Ben Solo is able to split a tree down to the root in the middle, where Luke is impressed and begins asking about his parents, Leia and Han. This is where the scene begins to take a slightly darker turn, where Ben gets overwhelmed with anger and has the famous Ben Solo temper tantrum, where he then throws parts of the bark at, of course, a nearby pond, full of flamingo-like creatures. Now let me just stop right here for a second. Now, basically, if you guys did not know, judging by the canon, it suggested that Ben Solo was not Luke's first Jedi student until maybe around his pre-teens into his teens. And from what it sounds like here, he's a child. We're talking about like maybe before the age of 10, maybe even younger than the age of 6 for all we know, who knows. But this child being Ben Solo now, making of course one of the big cameo makeups for Mando Season 4, and how basically this is the one big sequel trilogy connection that Jon and Dave are aiming for, to really kind of explore the character of Ben Solo in a different light. Now, I will agree, when watching the sequels, the major thing that I did like about them was Adam Driver's performance. I felt like he was the highlight of episodes 7, 8 through 9, and I think that this character is in more favor than Daisy Ridley's Rey in different areas. Given that you have someone like Ben Solo, getting approached by Jon and Dave and how they're storyboarding him right now to be used in Mando Season 4, and how it is planned, by the way, that George Lucas is going to direct this episode to kind of give us a different take on Ben Solo and Luke and their relationship as uncle and nephew. So, the thing that I do like about this so far is how they are creating a callback to Luke yelling Uncle Owen. And in this case, Ben Solo is yelling Uncle Luke. And that's really interesting. I kind of like that because it's somewhat of a callback to the Rise of Kylo Ren comics, where you do get to see, you know, the childhood of Ben and leading into the destruction of Luke's Jedi Temple, all these different things, and how Snoke comes into the picture and fulfills, you know, the neglect that Ben got from Han and Leia. Anyways, now, apart from that, Luke uses the Force to deflect the barks of tree in these storyboards from hitting the creature, and where Luke is telling Ben he needs to control his anger and that's why he is here. In canon, Ben Solo's turn to the dark side actually came from his parents neglecting him as a child, and also learning about the fact that he is indeed the grandson of Darth Vader and how Leia kept it a secret from him. He was, of course, the grandson of the Sith Lord himself. It turns out that this is the point that Ben Solo is the first student of Luke's Jedi Order, just like in the comics. However, Mando 4 is planned and is said to actually have multiple time jumps that will feature other Jedi students as well. Favreau is also planning a reunion between Luke and Grogu again in Mando 4, where Luke will also meet Djarin for the first time. Now here's the deal about this. As you all saw in the Mando Season 3 finale, if you guys have not seen it, spoilers by the way, there is a very excellent moment where Grogu uses some of Luke Skywalker's teachings in order to protect both Din and Bo-Katan. I'll just say that, I won't unveil everything in case you guys have not seen it. And it really just goes to showcase exactly how far Grogu is coming along by the end of Mando Season 3 and what kind of potential he has for Mando Season 4, given that there's going to be multiple time jumps. So, I like this idea that John and Dave are developing, and how they're really overall trying to give something very special for the fans. How, basically, at the end of the day, they want to pay tribute to Ben Solo. They want to make sure that they are going to continue the whole uncle and nephew side of the story, and keeping the aspect of family in Star Wars. True family, must I add. And as you saw, guys, at the end of Mando Season 3, they kind of technically still, you know, did the concept of family with adoption. I won't go into full details about that also, but it's really interesting of what John and Dave are trying to do. Now, this makes one to actually wonder, is this going to be an AI-generated or CG-generated version of Ben, or are they going to recast a younger actor to portray him? I would say it's the latter, most certainly. I don't see them doing a CG version at all. And I think at the end of the day, this is exactly, you know, what could really set up Luke Skywalker's, you know, Jedi students and where it's all going to go, given that it's going to have multiple time jumps and it's going to feature numerous Jedi. And we talked about this by the way, that there are plans to throw in Kyle Katarn into Mando as a whole, into the Mandoverse. Does that necessarily mean Mando Season 4? That's a big question for sure as well. So anyways, guys, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.